Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman. We begin with the latest on Hurricane Harvey. At least 14 people dead, including a Houston police officer. 3,500 people rescued, record-setting rainfall, and now new worries. A levee south of Houston set to breach, and a second landfall coming over Louisiana. For the latest, we turn to Lana Zach, who joins us live tonight in Houston. Good evening, Lana.
Good evening. Just moments ago, First Lady Melania Trump issued a statement about her visit here to the state of Texas, saying that she found most profound the compassion and sense of community that has taken over the entire state. And I have to say that we have certainly seen that in full force here.
President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania arrived in Corpus Christi to receive a briefing on the historic floods.
This was of epic proportion. Nobody's ever seen anything like this.
Many of the officials present told the president that recovery is just beginning.
Recovery is a slow process, but rest assured that we're doing everything we can.
Houston's police chief announced the death of one of his officers who drowned while driving to work.
Once our dive team got there, it was too treacherous to go under and look for him.
The dive team found the officer's body when the waters receded. In Houston, an epic rescue effort continues around the clock to save people trapped by rising floodwaters. And this man, stuck on top of his car, waited for crews in a dinghy to spirit him to dry ground. We saw firsthand how evacuated residents are filling shelters beyond capacity.
We're not going to turn people away.
The emergency shelter at the convention center in downtown Houston was meant to house 5,000 people. It's now almost doubled that, beyond capacity at nearly 9,000 and growing. The mayor promised more shelters will open and has requested more cots. To make matters worse, a pair of old reservoir dams built 70 years ago to protect downtown Houston are now overflowing their levees, adding to the rising floodwaters. The floodgates at other dams are releasing water at twice their normal rate, trying to relieve some of the pressure. And 5 consecutive days of rain has set a new record in the continental United States for a tropical system. One weather station southeast of Houston reported over 49 inches of rain as of Tuesday morning.
And more than 1 trillion gallons of water has now fallen here in Harris County, the Houston area, and it continues to fall. Just to give you some perspective, that's enough to fuel Niagara Falls for 15 days. And so many of you have asked how you can help. The Red Cross tells me that they will take any donation, whether in-kind donations or monetary donations, but they are also asking for volunteers. Reporting live from Houston, Lana Zach, ABC News. Back to you.
All right, Lana, thank you very much, and also thank you for mentioning the Red Cross and how people can get involved. Let's analyze the response and where we go from here when it comes to cities like Houston or New Orleans in terms of rebuilding. And for that, we'll bring in our panel tonight. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, is here. And joining us is Ellis Hennigan. He's a columnist, a political analyst, and an author. He's also got 2 new books set to hit your Amazon wish list. More on those coming up later on in the program. First of all, is it too soon to get a sense of how this administration and FEMA are handling the response? I mean, the president was in Texas today. He stayed away from the worst hit areas. He went to Corpus Christi and he went to Austin. But too soon to tell, you think, so far, Ellis?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think going there is probably the right thing to do. Keeping his distance, also the right thing to do. You know, presidents do not arrive lightly. They bring a huge entourage, and then the local officials have got to turn their attention away from the business at hand to deal with the visiting politicians. So, you know, you got to walk a careful line there. At this point, really what we're expecting from our president is to set the right tone, to express national concern, to show that Washington is focused on this thing, to assure the folks that they're going to get the resources that they need. And yeah, I just think it's too early to tell how well he's done.
Way too early to analyze the president's response to this. He's off to a good start, setting the correct tone for the country, but this is still very much, I don't want to use the word fluid, considering, but it's still very much a fluid situation that can change at any moment. So the president is off to a good start, but we'll see.
There are 2 aspects to the response that I did want to get into. The first is that while the president appears to be saying and doing the right things in Texas, he did call for $1 billion to be cut from FEMA's budget in his budget proposal, and he doesn't seem to have, or at least there's been no expressed interest from the White House in revisiting that. The other factor is Texas's legislators, including their U.S. senators and particularly the Republicans in Congress. Remember, they all voted against Sandy aid after our region was devastated by Hurricane Sandy. Our delegation, including Democrats and Republicans, said, we're not holding it against them. We're going to vote for this Harvey relief funding. So I wonder if the next time there's a disaster somewhere else in the country, particularly in a blue state, if they'll all see the light and vote to provide assistance. Your thoughts on either?
You know, let's hope. I mean, I don't want to get in. I think our reps have been right about this. I don't want to get into, well, you didn't help us, so we're not going to help you. Right. I mean, listen, we're talking about helping the local people there who did nothing but suffer. I mean, they didn't cast any of those votes. And perhaps this will remind others that all parts of the country at some point or another have their moment of disaster. And hey, we're in America. We need our government to help us. Feds, nobody can do it like the feds in the end, despite all these great stories, Dominic, about neighbors helping neighbors. We do need government here, and yeah, we got to pull together, all of us.
Ellis is such a gentleman and a scholar. The fact of the matter is, Texas elected officials, I believe both of their senators, have been caught red-handed. Because the fact of the matter is, when it was the East, oh no, you know, pork. We're not supporting this. Oh no. Now, unfortunately, the other situation, the same situation, has happened exactly to them. So I've been watching, I don't know about you two guys, I've been watching the tap dance for the last 24 hours with the senators from Texas, Ted Cruz, and all of their officials. And the way they're trying to clean it up is, oh no, we supported Sandy relief. We didn't like the pork that was in it. Well, Senator, you know, there wasn't much pork in the, oh, well, we thought it was pork and that's why we didn't support it. But now, but I think Ellis is correct in the way he's summing this up. At the end of the day, we're all Americans, and Americans stick together. Those people need help, just like the people with Sandy needed help. I do want to say this as it relates to the president. These types of situations, tragedies, as we all know around this table, is an opportunity for an official to look good, to display leadership. And in Trump's case, traditionally, it's to hit the reset button. But the fact of the matter is, this president has stepped in so much trouble, so fast, so early, no matter what he does, he is not going to be able to hit the reset button.
And he's been arguably more focused on how he looks in all of this, but we'll get to that later on in the program. I wanted to ask you both about the challenges of rebuilding, especially when these storms of the century seem to be happening all the time. Hurricane Harvey is just the latest in a long line of storms, and in Houston, flooding the big concern as areas see more moisture from the Gulf with less and less green spaces to help absorb the water and help it run off safely. Just the latest in a long string. New Orleans, Ellis, your hometown. Remember the levees failing there after Katrina, but the city has continuing problems with its pumps. They're now having flooding after just heavy rainstorms, and a lot of New Orleans is still below sea level. It's probably not a question of if, but when the city falls victim to another Katrina. And we saw it in our area here too. Hurricane Sandy showed that our region is far from impervious to massive damage following a storm, leading to serious questions about how and if to rebuild, particularly in these sensitive areas. Houston has big flooding problems. New Orleans, below sea level. Do we have to reconstruct these cities in a way to prevent this from happening again? Otherwise, and this might sound heartless, but we're setting ourselves up for this to happen again and again.
Well, listen, obviously that's a very complicated question. Here are a couple of things we know. These cities are not going to go away, right? 6 million people, whoever it is that lives in the metro Houston area, or the million or so in New Orleans, are not going to, they're not going to all move to Shreveport. I mean, there's a history and a culture and families and roots and stuff there. Any more than you could move New York to Arizona. I mean, that's just not going to happen. So it does seem to me that we as a people ought to be smart enough, and science and technology ought to have helped us enough that we can build levees that can hold back water, or pumping systems that can drain a city. This is technology that at this point is like, what, hundreds or in some cases thousands of years old. And it just takes some national will to say, okay, this is important, we're going to live here. Maybe the seas are rising, Dominic, as we keep hearing, but we're smart enough to deal with this, aren't we?
Should we spend public money in areas where we know, for example, if you want to build a house right by the shore, fantastic if you can afford to do it, but that house is probably going to get flooded out at some point by some storm, whether it's on the Jersey Shore, or whether it's in New Orleans or in Miami. And at some point, it does become a question of the best use of public money, doesn't it?
Yes, but I believe it's public money that must be spent. A couple of issues here. One, Isn't this the same president that doubts whether climate control is an issue?
That's another factor in
Isn't
all
this the
this,
same
yeah.
president?
Good point.
Isn't it his party that throws water and with these metaphors I keep coming up with here? But isn't it this president that throws serious doubt in the Republican Party on climate control, and they try and make people like Al Gore look like they have psychological issues for even pointing this out? So Mother Nature has a strange way of striking back. We don't want any bad things to happen to the people of Houston. I've been watching the stories. But the other issue is, and Ellis touched on this, he said a word, and this is the key word in all of this, will. You said will in terms of our elected officials. Let's cut through the nonsense. Here's the problem. Our elected officials are very patronizing, and they like to spend money on items that will get them reelected. The items that they like to spend money on: crime, cutting taxes, more police officers on the scene, stuff you'll see today or tomorrow. Yeah. They don't like to spend money on infrastructure, except for Cuomo and the bridge. They don't like to spend money on bridges. Look at what happened in Minnesota. And so thus we're having this type of situation all over the country. So it's going to take a very strong elected official to say, because Andrew, the fact of the matter is, people are not going to stop building on the water. It's going to keep happening.
You made a great point about infrastructure spending, and we saw Governor Cuomo with the bridge, and he could stand on it, stand in front of it, look at this thing. Seawalls aren't particularly sexy. No, it's hard. The public doesn't notice when a seawall goes in, or levees, or pumps, or the kinds of infrastructure that are only in the spotlight when